Your first bike might not necessarily be the bike you want, but it should definitely be the bike you need. TG MotoRider on my VFR 1200X Cross Tour. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about buying your first bike. I had a couple of people ask me, hey, what's a great way to choose a first bike? Well, there are a lot of factors that enter into that. And to be honest with you, there will be more questions you have to ask yourself. The first thing I'd like to start with is your skill set. What do you bring to the table? Have you had the motorcycle safety course? I thought that was a very beneficial class I took many years ago. And I really haven't forgotten it. Matter of fact, I saved all my notes. I saved the textbook. And I go back and look at it once in a while. That being said, if you bring to the table nothing, you've never been on a bike before, you think you know how, you've ridden down some country roads before, you rode on your cousin's or your friend's motorcycle, I recommend you just take the class. I mean, I triple recommend it. You know what I mean? There were so many things I learned in that class that I would never have known. But if you haven't, do not, in my opinion, start on a leader bike. Don't start on a ZX14. Don't start on a GSX 1000. I wouldn't even start on a Ninja 650. If you've never ridden a bike really before and you're just trying to get your bearings and you're riding around a parking lot to get used to it, and then eventually you're going to get out onto the streets. A couple things you need to ask yourself in terms of buying your first bike. Are you going to be using this to commute, or are you just going to be a weekend rider, which is an honest question. If you're going to be using the bike to commute, you might want to seriously consider anti-lock brakes, because you will get stuck in the rain. I ride every single day, and I've been stuck in the rain a million times. Half of my bikes have had ABS, half have not. I can honestly tell you, when you ride with anti-lock brakes in the rain, you do have a little more confidence. Number of times I've had to hit the brakes hard as I can in the rain, and when you do that, the bike just goes, keep your handlebars straight, and the bike just goes doop 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 doop. No squishing, no goofing around. You know, when you don't have ABS, and if you have to hard brake, you more have to press rear and front together. On a completely separate note, my cousin Freddie is a wet nurse for a small animal clinic outside of Schenectady. Well, this bike's got traction control, because I knew I'd be riding it even, in the winter. I ride year round. So that's something to consider. ABS and traction control. Another thing to consider is riding. Is the motor too big for you? Is the motor got way too much torque for you? Something to think about. Can you handle the weight and the speed? It's another thing to think about. Are you going to have the sense on whatever bike you just bought to come from underneath on the throttle? I mean, slowly throttle, and then slowly throttle a little faster till you get used to your clutch points, to get used to where you can feather the clutch, to where you can get used to all those things, because every bike's a little different in that regard. It kind of is. The weight of the bike, can you balance it at a stop? Can you slow maneuver it? But you also need to get a bike that is not going to put you in a bad spot because you made a bad choice with your throttle hand, or you came in too hot on a corner, you came in too hot on an off-ramp or an on-ramp. You just don't want that situation, man. I really don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the reason it's so vitally important is because if you choose a bike that has super twitchy throttle, super fast motor, and it's way beyond your sense of control skill set, you can get yourself into trouble very quickly if you're not operating the bike with some confidence, and that confidence comes a little bit later sometimes, But when you start on a bike that's insanely fast, you're going to find yourself coming in hot on a corner, coming in hot, coming in way too fast. I did stunts for almost 30 years, did stunts in movies and television, and the thing we always did was called layering. You want to layer that. You want to come from underneath. You want to throttle a little, then a little more, then a little more. And you don't want to press your luck when you don't have any skills yet. If you press your luck and you don't have any skills yet, you're dead. So don't do that. Don't run right out and say, well, you know what, it's a bike I can grow into. I'm going to get a twitchy GSX 1000. Okay, I've had a GSX 1000, and if you ride it the wrong way, it's going to leave your butt on the road and go on up there without you and crash. I've got a friend of mine, Cameron, you know, big dude, but he knew he was a new rider. You know, and he went out and got himself a Royal Enfield. And it's a nice, it's a low displacement bike, but it's got ABS, it's got all that stuff, it's got GPS on it. It safely do his navigation. It's a light bike, and he knew that was a great place to start for him, and a great commuter, and you know that's a good bike to start. The Royal Enfields are cheap, brand new, and you get lots of goodies on them. They give you the ABS a lot of times on those. Now you're thinking, do I start with a sport bike? Do I start with an adventure bike? Do I start with a cruiser? Where do I start? That's what you're probably thinking. Well, I would say, what bike did you take the motorcycle safety course on? That might be a good place to start. You can always trade it in and get something different later. Or you can buy 13 motorcycles like I did and become a two-wheel junkie. So the Kawasaki Versa, that's a great bike to start with for an adventure bike. Gives you a little bit of off-road. Gotta stand up on the pegs when you're going over this garbage. I wouldn't start with this VFR 1200 Cross Tour. It's a 4-cylinder, it's 140 horses, and it's 630 something pounds wet, and it's really tall. I gotta tiptoe it when I come to a stop. I can't flat foot this bike. And when you're a new rider, you're gonna want to be able to flat foot your bike when you come to a stop. So you can start with a 250 or a 300. There's nothing wrong with that. For some people, that's all the bike they ever need for the amount of riding they do. And if you want to get something that's got a little more horsepower, something you can grow into, that's fine too. But just be judicious with your throttle hand and kind of grow into it a little bit. And take the class. I know I keep driving it home. Your first bike might not necessarily be the bike you want, but you should probably make sure it's the bike you need. TG MotoRider, signing off. Right behind me is the spot where Pesh Kagan lost his leg to a great white shark in 1931. It swam all the way up here to St. Louis. And then 1 week later, another diver lost his right leg as well. He had 2 right legs gone in a week. And it turns out the shark was a serial maimer. So they eventually found him. And he had all the legs, you know, he had saved, piled up in his shark den. His shark cave. He had a shark cave, bottom of the river.